This conference will now be recorded.
Okay. You're up.
It's my turn.
It's your turn.
You are up. Well, I would defer to Senator Geller. I think you want some papers.
It says welcome introductions, Isabel.
Yes, welcome. Welcome.
Thank you.
Name is Isabel.
Okay.
So I just want to welcome everybody participating online here with us in the office. Thank you for being with us. I have to say that staff has been very impressed by the high quality of all the applications. And we're very much appreciative of your efforts. We know that this takes a lot of work to put these together. So thank you very much. And with that, I'm going to turn this over to my incoming chair, Senator Geller, and my council member and legal counsel.
Senator, if you wouldn't mind having Kathy call the roll so we can know for the record who's physically present, who's also.
And the
online.
first thing I'd like to do would ask Kathy to call the roll so we can tell who's physically present and ensure that we have a quorum online.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Just need a screenshot.
MIRR,
Yep, here.
Garcia,
It's on mute, but it's
Here.
thank you. Geller,
here.
Hoffman,
Here.
Ciotti,
Here.
thank you.
And for the record, Mr. Chair, you have a quorum under the statute as well as under the rules of this organization. You have 2 physically present and they meet the 1/3 requirements. You may proceed.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
At this point in time, I would like to call on Christina Miskus from the council to give us an overview as to the process. Then there will be presentations. Before we get to the presentations, after the process, I'll have questions. Because again, I have reviewed them, and having reviewed them, I had 2 questions. I'll just tell you one of them with quick question, if you can address this. Under the E, it says approach and explanation of how the respondent will address and accomplish the scope of services within the required project schedule, maximum 35 points. But if you look at the point range, it's 0 to 10, 11 to 20, and
Well, it goes to
21 to 30.
Right.
So
I can explain that, Senator. What happened was that we had a category, and I would say that that was an accidental staff oversight, because we did have a category when we issued the RFP that was for a minority business enterprise or a minority serving educational institution.
Okay.
5 points were allotted to that. Since none of the respondents were either one of those, instead of having the points go up only to 95, we moved that 5 over to either the approach, but it should have been adjusted
Right.
in that
Right.
part, and it was not.
okay, the second question that I had was when it talks about experience, let's see, demonstrated ability, well, A, demonstrated ability to work both qualitative and quantitative with DOD, military installations, federal, then experience B and C. They are ranked in periods of years. On some of these, it was hard to tell if their total experience
Right.
was clearly exceeding 15 years, but based on the information, it was very difficult to tell in many cases whether their military experience was how much. So just as an example, I saw several said, yes, we are currently working on the MIRR in here, or we completed something there a year ago. That doesn't tell me whether or not their experience, including the military, was over 15 years. It may, but that information was frequently difficult to find. So I was unsure how to rate that, because whether it's A or C, since the score is supposed to be based on apparently the number of years, I was unsure and remain unsure if somebody has 5,000 years of experience, which would be difficult, but 4 years or 6 years with the military, whether we're supposed to give them the 12 to 15 significant experience or the limited experience less than 5, based on whether or not it's their total experience or their experience with the military. Attorney, can you advise me of that, or is that a Christina question?
It would be a Christina question, but it is, by the way, interpreted by you as the selection committee as to how you apply it.
And
I, however, would not like to apply mine differently than the way other people are applying it. So if there is guidance.
There would need to be consistency in that application amongst the committee members. So you're both looking and weighing the same values at the same time.
Right.
Okay,
And if you
well,
think there's something that makes more sense, I think you have, as a committee, the ability to make.
I was hoping that you guys that there was a settled answer. And if there is, please tell me. But as I said, I have reviewed all of them, and on many of them, I was unable to tell the total amount of.
Especially when you start getting percentage of the time they're giving.
Yeah, so I'm going to give 62% of.
Right, it got very.
18% of the employees that have 47%
Yeah.
of military experience goes beyond my math.
It threw my abacus off the chart.
Okay, Christina, what can you tell us about the process?
Good morning, Christina Miskis, South Florida Regional Planning Council. Thank you for the excellent questions. It is, of course, at the discretion of the committee as to the interpretation of the scoring sheet. To some extent, it has to be useful to the committee. Generally, as you've seen on the scoring sheet, the focus is military issues. On B, the focus is vulnerability assessments, on the experience related to vulnerability assessments. C, the focus is on the experience and performance on outreach. D is the personnel qualifications, and E is the general approach, how the clarity of the approach and the details provided in how this firm would address the needs of this study. So in those general categories, I think if it is to the desire of the committee, we could, instead of focused on the specific years on those sheets, make a determination as what each individual would consider significant versus limited. Because the years, as you say, it's difficult to sort them out exactly within those quantitative intervals.
Okay, respectfully, and then I'll call on Commissioner Burr, where it says A, it's a demonstrated ability to work with Department of Defense, military installations. Then it goes on to say federal, state, and local government, elected officials. So it is much broader than just the military. Commissioner Burr?
Yeah, and on the C part, where it talked about community engagement and then developing public-private partnerships, those are two different things entirely.
Oh, exactly.
It was very hard to figure out what I'm weighting, because one, some would talk about, okay, I brought in $10 million of public-private, but it doesn't look like you did a lot of community meetings.
So maybe we should define community.
That might be
Right, and it is I would like to hear from the other board members or selection committee before we get into the presentation on proposals, so that the presenters will know what they should be, what we'll be looking for. I am extremely flexible as to how we do this, but I do feel that we should all be weighing on the same criteria, because if not, I'm afraid we'll end up with a report that one of us gives 3 apples and the other is 2 oranges, and I don't know the apple-orange conversion scale. So Senator Garcia, or Mayor Ziotti, or who else? Who's our fifth? Mayor Kaufman. Do any of you have any input or suggestions as to how we measure, just to ensure uniformity? I'll take that as a no. Mayor Ziotti, are you trying to speak? Because all 3 of you are on mute right now.
There's Mary Ziotti.
Oh, I know I'm muted. No, I thought it was pretty clear as far as point system and how, I mean, that's how I've done them before. So
Well, what is your suggestion then in terms of just whether it's A or C, where they're based apparently on number of years of experience, but it talks about both the Department of Defense, military, but also local governments, whether we should we, in your opinion, then can't give everybody points, but if they have more significant military, that we would want to give a little bit more in that area.
I agree, just as we would a minority-owned business.
Okay. Does everybody agree then in terms of what we'll be looking at, that we will be still basing this on the number of years, which seems to be the criteria, unless anybody has a way of changing that, but also that we will, for example, 16 to 20 exceeds 15 years. If they have 16, more than 15 years, but zero military, they might get a 16, while if they have more than 15 years, but have done, immense amount of military, that they might get 20, and that's how we will differentiate. Does that sound agreeable to everybody?
Well, the only commissioner, sorry.
No.
I understand that waiting, but I also want the amount of years that's actually in coastal engineering and the understanding of coastal structures that to me, that's almost as important as military, because what I was seeing was a difference in experience of both military and then those are dealing with sea level rise, water structures, and they both are going to be invaluable.
Several I saw were resilience.
That's what I mean. That's what I'm talking about.
I mean, I remember one, and I don't recall which one, but one of the project managers had been the resilience coordinator for Miami Beach.
Right.
So resilience is clearly, and again, however we do it, I just want to make sure that all five of us agree. Yes.
Senator Geller, I believe Commissioner Kaufman and Senator Garcia do have comments.
Senator Garcia, followed by Mayor Kaufman. Isn't Kaufman Mayor? Commissioner? Okay, sorry, Sam. Senator Garcia, you're recognized, sir.
Yeah, look, I think that they were all pretty strong, to be honest with you. I mean, I think it's very hard to try to separate these companies between each other. And I do agree with the military experience and so forth. But one of the criteria that really I tend to look at and evaluate a little more, it's always been how much work you've done here locally. That's something that I think is very important when we start evaluating some of these companies, and especially the fact they're so close. I understand the military component of it, and also the minority representation is something that I kind of take a look at as well. So, I mean, those are my 2 cents based on these proposals that we have, but they're very strong, by the way. So I think
Senator, I think that there were at least 3 that I found hard to differentiate. Yeah. Let me ask a question as a follow-up to what you said, though. Ms. Cosio, you said there were none that were MBE or CBE. I noticed some of them said, well, we're partnering and we've got consultants. So is it your opinion that does not count for the 5 points, or is that a legal question, Sam?
Combination of both legal and operational. The answer is it may not count if you don't have it to propose. So you may be within your discretion to discount it.
We moved the 5 points to approach and to that.
Okay, so you've already eliminated that 5 points. All right.
So the discretion's been shifted to a decision making. It's now no longer discretionary.
Because it was there. None of the, in hindsight, I think maybe it was not really relevant to our form. This came in part from Washington and also Tampa.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I think it's
let me call on Commissioner Kaufman. Sam, you're recognized, sir.
Yes, I just agree with what you said, Senator Geller and Senator Garcia. Looking at the proposals, I was very pleased to see how strong they were. And certainly the experience with communities in South Florida should be emphasized as far as I'm concerned. And everything else you said, I agree with. So I think it sounds like we're all on the same page.
Okay. In that case, I believe, are there any additional process questions before I call on this, who's the Huston? Bridget.
Yes.
I'm sorry, it says, no, Bridget Huston.
No, but I don't think Christina's given her process.
Oh, I was going to ask if there were any additional process questions first. Do we all understand the process in that case? Christina, if you can comment?
Yes, I'll just add that staff did complete a review for completeness for each proposal against the RFP. So we were able to find that these proposals were all complete. So just want to confirm that. South Florida
While you're
Engineering.
presenting, it's my understanding based on your memo that we only have one for the MIRR2, that there was only one that met the criteria. Is that correct?
That there was only one that was specifically highly qualified for MIRR2. South Florida Engineering Consulting responded to MIRR1 and MIRR2 with one proposal, but did not specifically respond to the RFP for MIRR2. So the South Florida Defense Alliance seems to be uniquely qualified. We also did contact 2 references listed for each proposal, and we did provide those to you in the materials prior to this meeting. So I just wanted to share that with you. And also to introduce Bridget, who's the resiliency planner here at the council, who will provide more information about the background of the grant and the role of the council and the proposals that we did receive. Thank you.
All right. Did that conclude your process overview presentation, or do you have additional information?
Just the additional comment is our objective here today is to score and rank the proposals. There is an opportunity, if so desired by the committee, to invite the top 2 or 3 top ranked firms to come back for interviews if that's the desire of the committee to further differentiate between the proposals. If questions are desired to ask of the project managers, for example.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes.
So, yes, I would suggest, we were trying to move this quickly before the end of the holidays. But something that I think might make sense, given the fact that there's so much information here, is maybe to move the interview, if you choose to have interviews, from next Monday to the first week of January. And that would give more time to really get deeper in, or not. You may just.
No, I like that.
You may just.
I got a Christmas shopping. I'm behind.
I'm Jewish, it's all done.
So it's just something for consideration later, depending on what the will of the committee is.
Okay. Well, why don't we go through the initial, and I expect that if we do what I expect we may, which is come up with 2 or 3 finalists, then that's what we could do. But it's possible, though unlikely, that one will emerge as the clear choice. And if so, that may be unnecessary.
Correct. Legally, Mr. Chair, that may be an option which we can get to towards the end of the presentation, but that is a remaining legal option to actually make that recommendation today.
Okay. At this point in time, let me call, while I'm looking for my letters of reference, which I had, I believe now I'll call on Bridget. Is it Huston or Houston?
Houston.
Houston.
Yes.
Bridget Houston for the presentation of the proposals. You're recognized, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Bridget Houston. I'm the resiliency planner for the South Florida Regional Planning Council. I will be giving a brief presentation, basically just going over the major contents and key elements that both Christina and I outlined for the committee members and now for everyone to review. It's basically just to give everyone some direction, and if you didn't have the chance to look over the proposals, now you'll get a brief glimpse into what we were looking for and what we found. So I'm going to share my screen. She nested it.
That's Bridget. Do you on some of these questions, like what Commissioner Geller was talking about, like number of years, and do you have all that added up already?
So we've outlined basically what was in the proposal, just like overall general years of the project managers, but we didn't fill out the scorecards.
No, I'm not asking that, but if we were asking you, number of years that you were,
We don't really have that tallied up, no. We just went right from the proposals themselves. That's something we can do and then provide you with moving forward.
it just got a little confusing when
Yes,
it was
I can
all,
see where that.
when it was percentage and, 10% of 16 years. And
Yeah.
I needed more time.
No, never mind.
Okay, what you're giving us is the summaries for each,
Yes.
and that's is that the document that you had already given us?
Yeah, so I'll go over a brief project information, the process, the 2 RFPs, the different consultants and firms that submitted the RFPs, and then I will go over a brief summary of the proposals themselves. Okay, so just in case if anyone is new here or just wants a little recap, the project that we are referring to is the South Florida Military Installation Resilience Review, or the MIRR. We received the grant from the Department of Defense, Office of Local Defense Community Cooperation, and the entire project will take this span over 18 months, and the vulnerability assessments themselves will be conducted for 4 different military installations, which I have outlined here. So the general purpose of this project itself is to identify the risks and hazards and vulnerabilities as it relates to the military so that they can carry out their missions at the base. The entire project will be an all hazards approach. So that basically just means all the hazards that we experience here in South Florida, from hurricanes, flooding, will be assessed within the proposals themselves, and then will be part of the vulnerability assessments. And the overall goal is to identify and recommend actions or investments for outside of the fence to mitigate risks moving forward. So the scope of services, just kind of getting into the RFP itself, we were seeking professionals who would be able to facilitate the engagement process with the stakeholders, work with project participants, conduct the actual tactical and technical vulnerability and risk assessments, to identify the mitigation opportunities to reduce these risks moving forward, and to carry out the analysis themselves. So there were 2 RFPs that we put out for. So it was RFP 1, which was more project management, the conducting of the community engagement, the workshops, doing the actual research and conducting the analysis for the vulnerability assessments themselves. And then the RFP number 2 was basically the community engagement process with the bases themselves. And that would be the 4 different bases. Now you're seeing an overview of which firms and consultants apply to which RFPs. So again, we have the RFP 1, planning work for the military installation resilience review. We received a proposal from AECOM, ATM Geosyntech, Jacobs, Moffitt and Nickel, and South Florida Engineering and Consulting. And then for the RFP, we did receive 2, one from the South Florida Defense Alliance, and then the one that was in conjunction with the one application from South Florida Engineering and Consulting.
So,
Yes,
Chair, so I would just like to point out that South Florida Engineering and Consulting LLC applied for both RFPs within one document. They were not separated, nor we did not require that they separate, but they did not separate it into 1 and 2. So for that reason, Christina earlier mentioned that we had gotten one that was clearly 2, but the other one was all put together as one. So I just wanted to clarify that when we said we received 2, that the South Florida Engineering Consulting was a combined application for both 1 and 2.
Okay, at the appropriate time, after we've heard the presentations, based upon a recommendation of staff that there's only one qualified applicant for MIRR2, not yet, we'll hear the presentations, but I'll be accepting a motion to accept the only qualified application according to our staff for MIRR2. Please continue with the MIRR proposals.
Okay, moving into the MIRR1 proposals, we have AECOM, and these are just ordered in alphabetical order, so no specific order here, just going with that. So this is for ACOM. I know it's a lot of information, a lot of text on the slide, but basically just wanted to.
Can you just maximize the slide?
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very impossible.
I'm gonna have to pick my class.
And that is the same thing that we have in our, because I think I have a copy of that. Okay.
Yes.
See that? See it, but I wouldn't be able to read it.
All right, please proceed.
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, just to kind of
Give me one more second. To our 3 committee members, please understand that I can't see you because the entire screen is taken up. So if anybody has any questions, please either type them or just go off of mute and speak and we'll recognize you, but waving your hand will do no good because I can't see you. Please proceed.
So just to give a brief outline of how this was formatted, basically we based the criteria off of the scoring sheet. So we have experiences, qualifications, and approach, along with the different scoring sections that those apply to. And so I'll just kind of read through the highlights or the general key points that other staff and I picked out. For ACOM, they have a bunch of relevant experience. Some of the top ones that kind of got to the surface were the Southeast Florida Business Care for Resilience. That was in partnership with the Urban Land Institute, Greater Miami and the Beach Resilient 305 program, and the City of Miami Beach Sea Level Rise Vulnerability and Resilience program. There was also an installation development plan for the Naval Air Station in Key West and other projects as listed here. The 2 project manager and project director would be Lauren Swan and Lauren Cherney, both of which are located in Coral Gables. The rest of the main team is listed here as well. Moving on to the approach. So the approach was very involved, very descriptive. Obviously, I couldn't include all of the details onto this one slide, but I did my best to, is there where the, okay. Did my best to basically summarize the main points and highlight what makes each applicant different. So here we have the 5 major steps that were outlined within their proposal. We have preparation, coordinating steering committees and work groups process, research and analysis of threats and vulnerabilities, which was broken up into not only the different hazards and the different things that will be assessed for vulnerability, but also kind of the approach and the technical aspects to conduct the assessment. So
Can I say something?
No.
And I think that what might be helpful is to highlight while we're going through each one of these, so that we can kind of, distinguish a little bit. On this one, what caught my eye on this is their highlighting of all the infrastructure that they were looking at with the steering committee. And maybe all the other ones are doing it as well. But when they're talking about their treatment plants and all these things, they're talking about going through all those, which I thought was a good point. The other ones might be doing that as well, but
This was very detailed.
this was more detailed than I saw on others.
I believe that Commissioner Furr's point is well taken, that we should, if we have questions, instead of waiting till the end, we should be going over each of them. I do have however, a general question. If you can point out, because when I went through the approach, which was lengthy on all of them, to me, I could not, based on my lay experience, I could tell almost no difference, because at least 4 of them and maybe 5 had detailed approaches. So if there's anything that you can point out on the approach section that would differentiate that from any of the other applicants, please do so, because as I said, to me, they all look highly technical, highly efficient, and I honestly could not differentiate based on that. I was able to differentiate based on their experience, based on their projects, but the approach is what I had the biggest problem with. Commissioner Furr?
The other part that on this one was, and I know this hadn't been looked at with a lot of the resilience stuff, but this one is actually looking at extreme heat where, and I know with Jennifer Otto now has put that into our own resiliency plan. So I just want to keep my eyes out for those kind of things, make sure that we're looking at all that.
Well, is it your recommendation, attorney, that we should be discussing these as we go, or it says review and scoring? Should we be, at what point in time should we have a discussion?
When you finish the review of the process, the procedure,
You think we should go through the 5 first before any discussion?
I would agree with that.
Okay, however, questions are okay as we go.
During the review, that's correct.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Gorin.
To keep the record of clear evidence of that, of your exercise of discretion, but also being open-minded about listening and questioning.
Gotcha. All right. So, however, having said that, I get back to my original instruction request, which is to the extent that there is anything on any of these, but particularly on the approach, because that's the one I found most difficult to differentiate. If there's anything that stands out, good or bad on any of these, please let us know on any of the categories, but especially in the approach.
Right, right. So the sequencing of the approach is generally the same, just because you have to analyze the exposure to the hazards, then go into the sensitivity and adaptive capacity of the community and the infrastructure. I think what sticks out the most is the infrastructure, the types that are being analyzed in the different RFPs, as well as the hazards themselves. Like you said, AECOM made a specific point to point out heat, and I don't think that I did see that in any other proposals. Additionally, their system towards the end, where they kind of combine those different layers I just explained to create the vulnerability assessment ranking, or kind of to see what's most vulnerable versus least. That methodology is different, just the way or the technology that they're using, the different softwares. So I did the best I could to kind of highlight the different softwares as they arose in these slides, and then I can provide additional information to you.
So you would say that as a plus for the AECOM under the approach would be the mention of heat and the listing of the part that says assets.
Yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. And again, for all of these, if there's anything under approach, it's either a plus or a minus, in your opinion, which will not affect necessarily the scoring, because the scoring will be done by the committee. I'm trying to make sure I keep Sam Gorin on my side. But please, if there is anything positive or negative on the approach, let us know. Yes.
So for Scott, Christine, I know I can't see you, but to the extent that there were applications that you thought were more clear or covered more material, or I think that you should share that with the board as well.
Definitely.
Great.
Christina, I don't know if you're there, but you were the one who initially reviewed this one. So if there's anything I'm missing or you'd like to add.
Okay.
So in the cover letter for AECOM, they did mention that they are also starting work on the Tampa Bay Regional Planning Council's military installation review. So that's significant that this is directly applicable to the same kind of program that they would be doing in concert if they were chosen. So I found their application to be extremely clear minded and particularly well thought out in terms of the subject areas, like you were mentioning, Commissioner Furr. The subject areas were really targeted, like extreme heat and the vulnerability potential in things like power. And also in terms of their anticipated deliverables, they did provide an example of providing a list of improvements that could potentially be presented at the end of this that could be implemented. So the potential for this project to be really helpful in terms of realizing improved vulnerability, improved resilience, for these military installations was very clear. It was a very strong proposal.
Quick question, then I'll quote Commissioner Furr. If there were any negatives that you noted, please let us know those too. Commissioner Furr?
Yeah, one thing that caught my eye a little bit when you were asking about experience, you also were asking what other kind of projects they had on. And I wondered if there was a capacity issue, if there was any concern. Because some of I'm seeing the contracts that they have, where they begin, where they end. And some of them have a few ending now, which leaves them a lot of room. Some of them are like knee deep in a bunch of stuff. And my question there was, okay, do you have enough room to do this? So,
Right.
and I don't know where that's, I guess I'm wondering if you all looked at that. Okay.
Yes, so the project manager and project director would be unique to this resilience review, and they're based in Coral Gables. So I think that having that local anchor, and they do have time on their hands to get this kind of project done. The breadth and scope of the professional expertise in a very large consulting firm like AECOM, I think can be noted. I think they have the breadth and depth of professional experience to be able to handle multiple projects. So that was
If we're going to get done in time, we need to move on to our next.
I won't ask any more questions.
You may ask questions, but not on AECOM. Okay, can you move on to the next, which I believe is ATM?
Yes.
Good.
Mayor Ziotti had a comment.
Mayor Ziotti, you're recognized, ma'am. I can't read that, so.
I'm sorry, I just typed it in. I did note that most of their staff are out of town, and by out of town, I mean out of literally the Tri-County area and even out of state. And they went so far as to include a travel expense of over $60,000 on their proposal. I just wanted to make a note of that.
Okay, Mayor Ziotti, I believe that that's what Sam Gorin had said, that he preferred that we, the commissioners, wait on our comments. I've got comments as well until after staff has completed their proposals.
Understood. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you.
Who is this one? I'm sorry.
The next one is
And
18.
geosyntax.
Okay, please begin.
So just generally going over major experiences from Geosyntec, we see National Physical Sustainability Development Plan, Coastal Hazard Assessment for Palm Beach County, NASA Kennedy Space Center Infrastructure Study, and another Coastal Hazard Assessment for Atlantic Beach, Florida. The prime consultant would be Geosyntec, and the major project manager would be Michael Jenkins. We also have Mark Ellard, who's a senior principal, Kathy Forrester, who is located in Gainesville, Florida. We have 3 different sub-consultants on this application. So we have Collective Water Resources, and the major player from there is Elizabeth Perez, who's the principal engineer located in West Palm Beach. We also have a sub-consultant of Fernleaf. The major project manager would be Jeff Hicks from there, who's a senior climate impact data scientist. I just also made a note that Jeff on the application said that he serves as on the TAC for the Military Installation Resilience Review for the Naval Station Newport, Rhode Island, obviously a different state, but thought it was noteworthy. Then the last sub-consultant would be Brazaga, and Alex Bogdanoff is the lead with that. They conduct a lot of vulnerability assessments here in Florida. I'm pretty familiar with them. Moving on to the approach, we have goals and objectives, data collection, research, threats and vulnerabilities. They also outlined the major assets. Seems to be a bit of a smaller list, but the main components that we are looking for are there. We have water infrastructure, transportation, communication, critical facilities, building structures, public spaces, and power and energy. Then moving into the vulnerability assessments itself, they also provided a very detailed look into what that would entail. Obviously, everything kind of starts with the GIS, data inventory, and analysis. Then they moved into how they would look at the different hazards and the exposure. Again, we see exposure, sensitivity, and adaptive capacity as the major process. And then last but not least, the implementation and the draft and the final reports.
Thank you. Again, you listed the approach. Is there anything in the approach, either from a positive or negative point, that you would want to point out?
There was nothing super significant that stood out to me, no.
Okay.
Everything I included, yeah.
Are there any additional questions from any of our committee members that are not live here before we move on? Any questions? Seeing no questions, if you could move on to the next one, which I believe is Jacob's.
Yes, it is. So here we have the major experience for Jacobs, the Homestead Air Reserve Base Community Planning, U.S. Coast Guard Sighting Study, Tyndall Air Force Base Resilient Installation Facility, Sea Level Rise Policy for the City of Key West, Florida, and Climate Change Compact. The lead here would be Susie Torienti. That's how you pronounce it. She is the Global Tech Leader for City Resilience.
She used to be in Miami Beach.
She used to be the, for Miami Beach, yeah.
Prior to that.
I don't know, Fort Lauderdale maybe, but she's the one that, when I
Miami
was
Beach.
going through that, I remember discussing resiliency, that I saw somebody that was Miami Beach. So I guess it was her. Okay,
I think she was in Fort Lauderdale.
yes, okay.
We also have Holly Schmidt, which is the principal at Jacobs and Director of Resilience and Sustainability Business Advisory, and Sarah Mars, who's the landscape architect and planner. The additional staff is listed here. I also wanted to call out Samantha Danchuk, who I also believe is on the call today. She has a lot of experience with vulnerability assessments. I worked with her prior, so I feel like that was noteworthy to mention. And some of her prior experiences are listed here as well.
She wrote our climate change action plan.
Yes, she's very involved. The general approach is goals, objective setting, data collection, planning, activities, and analysis. I did note a mention of a software called Kaleidoscope, which I have not heard of before, but they included a case study that it worked really well for before, and it's basically an app that helps to kind of synthesize the different vulnerabilities and help to like predict and scale. So that was something that stood out.
Is that proprietary?
That I'm not sure.
And is it pretty colored glass? Because it's so like.
It's not, unfortunately.
I guess I'm asking, is that
There.
software that they created?
I don't recall.
Okay.
Okay.
Sorry, let me ask you, no, were you done?
Yep.
Okay, let me ask you a question on that. Again, they seem to have, you've written less about their approach than you did on the first two. Can you comment on anything either good or bad in reference to their approach?
So I'm going to refer to Christina on this one. She was the principal reviewer of this proposal.
Christina, again, anything on the, because there's less written there, which to me doesn't say much, does one way or the other. Is there anything compared to the other proposals that you as staff would like to point out, either positive or negative, on the approach section or on anything else that they have?
I think Bridget, mentioned some of the qualifications of the locals with experience here in South Florida. That's a strength. The approach was perhaps more process oriented than the other proposals, but also
good or bad?
I think it was just more high level in terms of their proposal. But certainly they have the capacity to do the work.
Okay. Commissioner Burr, any additional questions?
No.
To our three committee members that are attending virtually, did you have any questions before we moved on?
That was Jacobs, right?
That was Jacobs.
Yes.
Okay, I'll take that as a no. Please proceed to the next one, which, if I have this correct, would be Moffett and Nickel.
Yes, that's correct. So here we have a good quantity of experiences and projects. I'll just name a few of the ones that were the most relevant. So we have experience with ongoing Metropolitan Washington MIRR and many joint land use studies, C869 watershed flood protection level of service, adaptation planning and mitigation project study, and a Port Miami Shore power pilot study. The lead here would be Lynette Cardo, the Director of Adaptation and Resilience. We have Tim Blankenship, who is located in Miami. Laura Shepard, the Senior Environmental Project Manager, also located in Miami. And then Captain Bob Hewler, who is also located in South Florida and Fort Lauderdale. We also have some input from ICF and Black and Beach. Thank you. From ICF, we have Cassandra Batt, who's the Director of Climate Resilience, located in Miami. I did note that she had some involvement in an additional MIRR in DC, so I put that on here as well. And then we have John Inges, project manager, who will be located in Tampa. For the approach, again, it's pretty general and pretty consistent with the other proposals. We have project management, facilitate based community engagement process, coordinating steering committees and work group process. Here again, they outlined the assets and the different kind of sectors that will be analyzed and taken into consideration. We have the research and analysis and the vulnerability assessment, the more technical side of things. They mentioned GIS as well, collecting data, and then the stakeholder workshops and recommendations memo for the final report.
Do they also use kaleidoscopes? Humor, sorry. Okay. Do you have any comment, again, because thus far, on the largest scoring area, which is approach, I have been unable to reach any determination on positive or negative on the approach because everyone seemed to be highly competent. Do you have any comments on Moffett and Nickel, either on their approach section, that would either be positive or negative?
So like AECOM, I do think Moffett and Nickel's approach section specifically was very well done. It was clear. They provided a lot of diagrams, graphics, and support. Like I said, I was trying to kind of just include the overall broad steps that they included, but theirs was very well done, well thought out. So I would say only positive things. I didn't see anything that stood out as a negative to me.
Do you have any additional comments, positive or negative, on anything else about the Moffett and Nickel proposals?
I think that it's a positive that they brought in ICF. I've worked with them and I'm very familiar with them, and I think that they do a really good job with vulnerability assessments. So that was something that stood out to me, but that's just my judgment.
Okay.
Who is ICF? I don't know who that is.
I noticed they had listed here several of their, and they spoke about the other groups,
Yes.
but ICF, they didn't have the actual description of.
Okay, I think they're in there. So if I could, Chair Geller, ICF also is working with the Washington Council of Governments, conducting a military installation resilience review with multiple facilities. So they have experience. I would tell you that the MIRR program is relatively new.
Right.
So.
Okay.
You know what that stands for?
Yes.
Military installation.
No, ICF.
ICF.
Oh, it stands for HICCUF. Are there,
I'll look it up.
so did you have any additional questions or comments? I saw you pointing. Anybody there? No. Okay, are there any questions or comments from the three committee members that are not here in person? If not, let's move on to the, well, maybe the last, maybe not, South Florida, I believe is South Florida Engineering Consultant,
Yes.
the last remaining one.
Or the MIR.
Okay, and again, only for part one,
Right.
since you've already deemed them non-responsive to part two. Or I should say non-responsive, but not qualified.
Not as highly qualified.
So therefore, on the MIRR1, do you have any, can you limit your remarks to that?
Yes, definitely. So just to repeat, it was one application for both RFP1 and RFP2. So it was a bit challenging to distinguish what was applicable to which RFP. We did a general overview of what they provided, and it was just more qualified and more specific to the RFP1. So that's where that came from. Just to go over the general experiences, there was a Dinner Island Ranch WMA hydraulic assessment that was conducted.
I just camped there.
Did you?
Wetland determinations for Florida, C51 canal support, datum conservation support project, and additional projects as well. The lead here would be Thomas Conboy, who is the president and principal engineer. It's located in Lake Worth Beach. We have Zaki Mustafa, the lead water quality modeler. I do not want to mess up this name, so
So don't tell us.
I apologize. And then Andrew Gottlieb, the lead environmental scientist. And then the rest of the team is also listed here for your reference.
Good.
The approach, as you will see, we just generally kind of outlined it. All the bits and pieces were there. It was a little bit less involved and descriptive as the other proposals. Still had, like I said, had all the content there, but was less meat to pull out, which is why it's a bit shorter. So we have project management, facilitate-based community engagement process, coordinate steering committee and work group process, research and analysis of threats and vulnerabilities. And they listed some of the data that they would be looking at, stakeholder workshops, and then recommendation memo for final support.
Based upon the fact that most of our grading criteria seems to be experience exceeding 15 years, and this company is 11 years old, I think that almost essentially eliminates them from competition. Do you agree, disagree?
They could be working from somewhere else
Yeah, but,
and gotten that much experience.
okay.
I understand what you're saying. It's a newer company.
Yeah, I'm not saying that this is the best scoring criteria, but it is the scoring criteria that I have.
Yeah.
And based on that criteria, I don't see how they can be competitive because they can't get their top scores in anything exceeding 15 years if the company's 11 years old. So I see a lot of heads nodding. Well, I'll reserve that when we get to.
Yeah.
All right, is there any, Commissioner Furr, did you have any questions or comments? Do our three committee members on the line have any questions or comments?
I do.
Yes, sir. Is that Sam? Or no,
Yes.
Renee? I'm sorry, Senator Garcia or Commissioner Kaufman?
Commissioner Kaufman.
Okay, whichever of you wants to talk, please go ahead.
Okay, so
Oh, that's Kaufman. I recognize the voice.
to follow up on Commissioner Furr, what he was talking about as far as capacity with respect to the personnel, has that been flushed out at all in terms of the percentages that the project directors or project managers would actually be available, or is that something that should be discussed at interviews?
If I may,
Yeah, Ms. Cofield, you're recognized.
Thank you, Chair Geller. I know that staff reviewed it, but I am not sure if, we went to the
I
level.
apologize, Ms. Carvalho.
That's good. No, you're good, because you're correct. So, so yes, I think that that's something that we could go further into. I think it's typical that a project director might have less percentage time on it than the project manager. So I don't think that's unusual. I don't know if Christina wants to add anything, but I didn't see anything that jumped out at me as they're not available to do work.
I didn't see that on any of them, but Ms. Christina, do you have any response in reference to Ms. Cosio-Carvalho's invitation to speak?
Thank you. That was also my thought upon the review of the proposals, that those questions be best answered in the interview, and I think that information would be valuable if there's a need to go in that direction, if there's not a clear winner in the
Okay.
There was no concern looking at the proposals, but I thought it would be useful to have more information from the project manager themselves.
I understand. Is there anything else before we get into questions discussion? I will have some comments and question discussion, but is there anything else in reference to the presentation of the proposals before we move on?
So there's still the South Florida Defense Alliance for the MIRR2.
That's separate.
Right.
Right, that's separate, and since they are the only qualified, I will, at this point, can I entertain a motion now, since they are the only one that's been ranked as qualified?
If you choose to.
Okay, I will ask, since staff has advised us that only one of the proposals for the MIRR2, which is from the South Florida Defense Alliance, has been deemed qualified. At this point in time, I will accept the motion to award the MIRR to the only qualified bidder in South Florida, subject to negotiation, of course.
This is Mayor
With the
Ziotti.
understanding that if we cannot reach an agreement, that we would have to reopen the bids.
Mayor Ziotti.
Mayor Ziotti moves. Is there a second? Commissioner Furr seconds. Is there any debate? Being no debate, all those in favor of Mayor Ziotti's motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Senator Garcia, you're still on mute, but just nod your head yes if that's an aye. Okay. Show the nod as an aye. Show the motion adopted by a 5-0 vote. All right.
Aye.
Make that 9-0 with Senator Garcia voting 5 times. We are now into questions, discussion. Before I get into my comments on these, I have a question for our attorney or suggestion. I think, but I'm subject to your opinion and others, that it would be better for us to decide before we vote if we're going to shortlist 2 versus 3.
Yes, sir.
Because that way we're not trying, it doesn't look like we're showing
Correct.
favoritism. So I'm going to suggest on the very highly scientific flip a coin method, there were 3 that I found almost indistinguishable. So I would therefore recommend that we shortlist the top 3. Ms. Cosio, you would agree? Okay, let me ask.
For the record, that would be a legally sufficient approach to dealing with the open issues. You've already dealt with MIRR2, that's a different issue. For MIRR1, if it'd be your choice to do that type of ranking, if by motion it were to be adopted by the committee, you could proceed along those lines.
Okay, so would that mean that we would just vote for the top 3, or are we still scoring them individually?
It would be the discretion of the chair and the.
Do you have a recommendation?
I do.
What is your recommendation?
I think it would be useful if you to consider it some form of scoring.
Okay, so it is the recommendation of, I guess, me in consultation with our executive director and attorney, that we rank the 5, I believe, remaining. I think it's 5. Remember,
Oh, yes.
right, that SFRPC is still, no, we're SFRPC. SFE and C is still,
We had 5.
right, so we still have 5.
Now we have.
Oh, we have 4, okay.
Unless, well, yes, no, I guess we still have 5. I wasn't sure.
Yes.
Question, but they.
Yes, so we still have 5.
Yeah.
So the recommendation would be that we rank them and then call in the top 3 as shortlist. For interviews.
Yes.
All right, is there a motion? Somebody make a motion. Commissioner Furr moves.
Yes. I was trying to say, yeah, I'm okay with 3. Yes.
Okay, would you prefer 2? I'm okay with 2.
Or I was almost thinking 4. Yeah, I know that's a lot.
Yeah, because that's not really shortlisting much if we just.
I know.
Right, so I'd recommend, and there were 3 I kind of found.
I know, and after that proposal, I started off with 3 and then I went to 4.
Okay.
That's kind of why I'm.
Well, are you okay with 3? If so, make the motion. If not, I'll ask someone else to. All right.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so Commissioner Furr, moves that we shortlist the top 3 and have them in for interviews. That's after we rank. We will rank and then have the top 3 in. Is there a second? Is there a second?
Mayor Ziotti, second.
Senator Garcia held up 2 fingers, so either wishing us peace or seconding the motion. I'm assuming that was a second. Is there any discussion? Any debate? Seeing no debate, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show that motion adopted. I will give my comments on the ones that we went through. I will then ask anyone else that wishes to give their comments, after which we will be voting. To me, whether this is fair or unfair, I dismissed the South Florida Engineering and Consulting based upon the fact they may do excellent work. I'm not familiar with them, but since our score sheets are based on years of experience and the company has only been in business for 11 years, they cannot possibly get the maximum scores. So I actually didn't rank them very highly when I went through. The remaining 4 were excellent. I don't want to use arbitrary and capricious because that would sound bad, and it wasn't actually arbitrary and capricious. I eliminated in my scoring ATM when I looked at where their consultants were. Although they do have some in South Florida, almost none of their project people, none of their people that work for ATM are located within the geographic boundaries of the South Florida Regional Planning Council. Now, again, everybody thinks South Florida includes Palm Beach, and I have been very vocal in my desire to poach Palm Beach into the South Florida Regional Planning Council. But since I have been unsuccessful in doing so, and I think there's one consultant only, Mr. Bogdanoff, who is Fort Lauderdale, but not actually part of the ATM group. He was one of their consultants.
Brazaga.
Yeah, Brazaga. And based upon the fact that they did not have any of their team members located in Monroe-Dade or Broward County, in my scoring, gave them less points for that. And let's see, as I looked at the lead project manager, again, I didn't see anything particularly in the military. I didn't see a lot of his experience with the military, although ATM peers, I think, are they the ones that their major issue was Kennedy Space Center?
Yeah, Space Center.
Okay, yeah. So I didn't see as much military, and the one I did see was, well, I'm not sure if they're military or not. I guess they may now be part of the Space Force, but I don't know that. By the way, for the record, I have reviewed the litigation on all of them and did not see any cause of concern for any of them.
Right.
Don't have all of the details, but I saw nothing that concerned me with any of them. So that was my view on ATM. The Jacobs seems to have a plethora, a wealth. I just wanted to use the word plethora of military experience, including here in South Florida. I found them highly qualified. I found a lot of their work to be right on point. I will say that initially, my initial thought was AECOM seemed to be, of all of them, perhaps the most qualified, biggest breadth. They seemed to have perhaps not quite as much military experience as either Jacobs or M&N, but I don't know, that is subjective as to how much weight we are going to give in that area. And I did note that my top 3 choices, which were AECOM, Jacobs, and M&N, all had experience in military. And then you get into the individual, how much are you going to give to overall experience versus military? I also noted with the Jacobs that they had, I'm looking, the fact that they have Ms. Toriente, who is the Chief Resilience Officer, or has been, of Miami Beach, I found very strong. And the fact that they have or they have a MIRR2 liaison DOD lead, I thought was, again, very strong. So I gave Jacobs high marks, and also I like the cover. Not a good point, but they're stressing their military, which again, rightly or wrongly, when I carefully, as a lawyer, I carefully pay attention to the words on the page. And the words on the page on the scoring point sheet mention military twice. They appear to have very substantial military. They appear to have, all of the criteria that we're looking for. They are AECOM and Moffett and Nickel and Jacobs all have offices located in the SFRPC area. I would like to hear more about ICF because that is one of the things that gives this project as much deep expertise as they have. And I think you asked Commissioner Furr, and I would like more information on them. When I've looked at the project manager and the principal in charge, they also seem to be highly qualified. They also have Captain Hewler, military planning and implementation. I have no idea, as I sit here right now, how I would pick a top one between AECOM, Jacobs, and M&N, but those are my three top choices. Commissioner Furr, did you have any comments?
Along those same lines, I thought AECOM did a very good job of describing in detail. They probably gave more detail as to, to the extent that that's helpful. I liked what they had there. Jacobs, I like the local talent there. There's a lot of local talent there, and a lot of people that have come out of the South Florida Regional Planning Compact. But for us, for local, that tells me these are the people that have been involved here deeply for 10 or 15 years, and now they have graduated through Compact, through the government, to these positions. They know our backyard. So that, I like what I'm seeing there. Part of Geosyntec has a little bit of that too. There is some local talent there. Alec Bogdanoff, who's been doing a great job on a lot of stuff. So those are the three that are probably catching my eye the most. I think Moffett has a lot of good. They obviously have a lot of good history and a lot of good experience as well. That's why I was having a hard time with three.
Right.
Because
we each have three. They're just a different three.
I know.
Which is very legitimate.
Yeah.
Part of the process, Mr. Chair.
Right.
Yeah. So that's kind of. I think I would like to hear, as I mentioned before, what the capacity issues they each have, but I think that comes in an interview.
But Ms. Cosio, when you contact the three shortlisted ones, please make sure that one of the things that they are prepared to discuss is Commissioner Furr's question.
Yeah, and I think what I would like to ask the staff, if it's all right, is when you're looking at experience and those kind of things, just kind of doing the addition and figuring out how it all works out and making sure, we're getting, like you said, apples to apples there. I think any three of them could do it. I have no doubt.
I don't know if it's appropriate to send a letter or something to all of the proposers, but we're very fortunate.
Yes.
The only reason that I have disqualified, in my mind, South Florida Engineering Consultant is because based on our score sheets, it appears to me they don't meet the criteria, but candidly, of the remaining four, I think they're all excellent companies that could do the job well. And we're now having to, carefully splice, looking for a tenth of a point here or there to differentiate between four very qualified companies. Sam, quick question. Are we in a code of silence?
Yes.
Good.
It's in
I
the
wanted to
RFP.
make sure
It's
that
in the
we,
RFP.
I wanted to make sure that nobody, so other Mayor Ziotti, Commissioner Kaufman, Senator Garcia, please understand that we are in a code of silence and that we should not be speaking with representatives of any of these companies.
Understood.
Consultants, not their lawyers.
Not their consultants, not their lawyers, not their lobbyists, not their next door brother's neighbor. We should not be discussing these matters with anyone.
Legally correct.
Okay, I just wanted to point that out
Thank you.
just in case.
And just one side note,
Yes,
Jacobs also brought in the vulnerability of heat as well as a conduit.
okay. Mayor Ziotti, do you have any questions, comments about before we do the ranking? Mayor Ziotti, you're on mute. Okay.
I would agree with you with regard to Jacobs and ATM, what is it, GeoNet? As far as a third, I'm tossed for a third, to be honest with you. So I, in all honesty, can only come up with those two.
When you're voting, you know, we will add up all of the points and that will, by the way, I will charge everyone at the end as we are voting that we need to be consistent. And what I mean by that is it's okay to rank them all very close to each other. It's okay to rank them very far apart from each other. What we don't want is most of us to rank close and have three of us have the same three and one person rank very far apart and have that one put, you know, one that is not in the top three into the top three.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, Commissioner Furr.
I actually think it might be worth doing all four. It would come back with some of the staff.
And we can work more on
And
it.
we can, now they know what we're looking for, because I think, you know, this is as you know, trying to go through all this stuff, this was dense. And I feel like we've kind of taken the top off it a little bit, but now you guys are hearing what we're kind of looking
And
for.
we can work to refine.
We can refine this a little bit more. I think it's worth going to this four, eliminate the one. But all four of these are really pretty good.
The only concern I have with that, Commissioner Furr, is that it's not going to get any easier when we have
It might not.
all four proposed. I think it at least if it's only three or if it's the top two, at least that way it's easier for us to distinguish. I'm concerned if we have all four, we haven't really shortlisted at all.
Barely.
Right, we've just eliminated the one
but what
that doesn't have the experience that we're demanding.
But I think they are deserving of more.
Okay.
And because I don't want to eliminate them yet, because I think they're deserving of a little bit more
Which one?
review.
Okay, well, before,
That's why I'm saying,
okay,
and it may, our process may go a little longer than we thought,
okay.
but I think given, this is not an easy one. This is
No,
because it's outside of our realm.
Four of these are really good. Let me ask a question before I take that motion, and this is not strictly pursuant to parliamentary procedure, but I would like to hear from Senator Garcia, Mayor Ziotti, and Commissioner Kaufman what your preference is. If your preference is to go four, I'll take the motion. If your preference is to stay at three, we won't. Senator Garcia, do you have any opinion, sir? No, this time no hand signals.
Listen, I've been able to get three that I have, I have a top three that I have selected. I don't know how you want me, if you want me to say who my top three are, do we wait? But I have top three that I have, and would you want?
Okay, hold up, Mr. Gordon, yes, go ahead, Senator.
I'm sorry?
You can
Go ahead, tell us who your top three were and why.
stating his preferences.
Oh, yeah, it's, I think the geocentric one, the ATM folks, they're the same ones. I think I ranked them mainly because of all the work they've done in South Florida, and I understand your comments about Palm Beach, and I get that. but I thought that they were one of the better ones. At least that's the one that I ranked number one. Number two, I went with the Jacobs. Is that Jacobs?
Yeah.
Yeah, Jacobs was number two, and my number three was ACOM.
Okay. And do you have an opinion as to whether we should go with the top three or the top four for shortlisting?
I'm good with the top three. I'm good that way. I mean, but whatever
Thank you.
top three we decide, I'm fine that way. You know, they're really good companies as far as I'm concerned.
I think four of them were clearly superior, but I agree, maybe three is better. Mayor Ziotti, do you have any opinion, ma'am?
I agree with
Three
Senator
versus four.
Garcia on the three, in no particular order, but those three are, I agree, the three.
Okay, and so on 3 versus 4 shortlisting, are you then in favor of 3?
I am indeed.
Was she in favor of the same three as?
No, not necessarily, but the question,
I thought she
I think
said
she said she was.
I think she was.
right, the question is whether or not right now, in reference to a potential motion, if we're shortlisting 3 versus 4. Senator Garcia said he preferred to shortlist only 3. Mayor Ziotti, do you prefer to shortlist 3 or 4?
3.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaufman, you're welcome to tell us who your choices are, but the question is on 3 versus 4, do you have any preference?
I don't have a preference with regard to that. I just wanted to say that I did agree with Mayor Ziotti in her earlier comment as to the top two. I would want to note that ACOM and Jacobs have significant experience in Monroe County. And as the Monroe County representative, I think I should be able to emphasize that. And I agree with Commissioner Furr with respect to the personnel in Jacobs, just very impressive. But also the work in ACOM is very impressive too. I have them virtually tied. Those are my top two.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Furr, it sounds like 3.
That's fine. Or 2, or 2.
So we'll limit it to 3. And one last issue before we vote. I think it will be much easier for us if what we do, instead of assigning points to everybody like here, can we simply rank 1, 2, 3? Because that'll be so much easier for us.
The answer is yes, Mr. Chair. And just two quick things if we
Yes,
can.
sir.
The RFP that was put on the street back in October, or September, actually, October, references basically the statute governing CCNA, 287, 050, 057, state procurement, et cetera. So you're in compliance with that provision. You're also in compliance with 286, 0113, which is you will conduct, the documents you have before you are privileged. They're only in the hands of the committee.
Okay.
The public does not have them. They're not public documents under the statute. Your interviews, of course, will be privileged. They will be recorded, but they're privileged. They don't yet become public until you make a recommendation.
So it's just the firm with a selection committee.
That's correct. That's correct.
Right.
That is correct. And it will be taped. It will be recorded, but it will not be public. Will not be public until the recommendation is made by the
Don't
committee
fill out yet, Beam.
to the board,
Okay.
and the board actually makes an ultimate decision where things reopen. So you're following the law, and your question in more particular detail is, do you want to choose just to rank them 1, 2, and 3? The answer is yes, so long as you open up a process of competition, of review, of measure, of analysis, which I think that process would entail.
Okay, based upon the opinion of the county attorney and based upon the fact that our form only limits it to years of experience, which I don't think is the best way. My recommendation would be, and I will be asking for a motion to rank the top 3. You can give 3 points to your favorite, 2 points to your second favorite, and 1 point to your third favorite. We will then, that's of the 5 that are remaining, and the 3 that get the most points will be the 3 that we shortlist. And Sam, can we say that you must rank 3?
Yes,
Okay, no bullet voting.
I think the answer is yes.
All right, so the motion that I will be looking for is to rank the top 3, giving 3 points to your favorite, 2 points to your second favorite, 1 point to your third favorite. You must sign the ballot and you must vote for all 3.
How are they going to send it out?
How we signing?
That's right. How are they done? I'm sorry?
I'll take it down here, record it.
Oh, okay, right.
That's all right.
No, so in that case, we can do a voice
Who's the
vote.
number one?
You can do a voice vote.
Yeah, voice vote. All right, is there a motion to do what we just discussed?
So moved.
Moved by Commissioner Furr.
Second.
By Commissioner Kaufman. All those in favor, is there any debate? Seeing no debate, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Show that adopted unanimously. We are going to break for about 2 minutes. When I say break, we're going to stay on, but we're going to take about 2 minutes to go through and rank the top 3.
And then you'll bring those to me
And then, well,
or to anybody else.
it doesn't matter. We have to call them orally anyhow.
Yes.
So let's give us a few moments.
Are you in recess, Mr. Chair, or are you?
Informal recess. But that's only a short break for us to write down our top choices and do whatever review is necessary. I had my top 3 chosen, but not necessarily in order.
Correct.
Crossing out. Mayor Ziotti, are you ready?
I am.
Senator Garcia, are you ready? Okay, Commissioner Kaufman, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
Okay, Attorney Gorin, can we proceed in the absent and then we'll just get
I would.
Commissioner Furr's vote?
He's coming back, I hope, yes.
We need it for the form.
We need it for the
Yes,
forum.
okay. I assume he
You
had
want-
an urgent appointment in a room with a small private room.
Yes.
Okay,
I walked out on quorum.
yes, okay.
You are the 1/3 of the forum.
Commissioner
Oh,
Furr,
God. Yes,
Commissioner Furr, have you
I have.
completed your vote? All right, I will vote last simply because as chair, don't want to influence anybody. Not that a single one of you care what I think.
You
but
think it would make a
nonetheless.
difference?
Okay. Commissioner Furr, can you please announce your top 3? Remember,
I can.
3 points for your top one.
Tie from
Number one.
number 1, my number 1 choice, Jacobs. Number 2, AECOM. Number 3, Geosyntec.
Commissioner Mayor Ziotti.
My top choice is Jacobs. My second choice is Geocentric. My third choice is ACOM.
Thank you. Senator Garcia.
Number 1 is Geocentric. Number 2 is Jacobs, and 3 ACOM.
Thank you. Commissioner Kaufman.
Yes. Number 1 is Jacobs. Number 2 is ACOM. Number 3 is M&N.
Thank you. And my top choice was Jacobs. My second choice was M&N. My third choice was AECOM. Although, again,
I know.
all fine companies.
Oh, good.
And it's going to be very difficult for us to shortlist. It sounded to me like Jacobs was the runaway point leader, but I'd like to hear from Ms. Cosio.
The outer upper.
Well, yeah, no, Jacobs has 12 plus.
Oh, wait. Okay, please.
Okay, so Jacobs has 4 votes on first place, which is 12. And it has 1 vote in second place, which is 2. So
So,
Jacobs has 14.
okay,
Okay.
give me another one. AECOM.
AECom has 2 votes at 2 points,
So that's 4 votes. And
and they have 3 votes at 1 point.
so that's 7 points. And Sam, can you please verify her math because we're dealing with higher math here. 2 plus 2 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1.
Jacob's 12, correct?
No, 14.
14.
Who's checking who?
Yeah, Joe, second who there?
All right, so.
And
AECom, okay, so then
M&N,
M and N
Merritt, Moffett, and Nickel.
has 1 at 2 points and has 1 at 1 point.
So 3 points.
3 points.
Okay. The
Geosyntec.
Geosyntec,
Geosyntec,
ATM,
yeah.
one company.
What's a
So,
real name?
yes. Geosyntec has 1 at 3 points.
Okay. 3,
It has
Geosyntec.
1 at 2 points,
5,
and it has 1 at 1 point.
6.
6.
Okay. And I believe I will call, although I don't think they got any votes, the South Florida Engineering and Consulting. Did they get any votes?
No, they don't.
Okay. According to the count that we have been given, and please verify this, Jacobs received 14 points, AECom received 7 points, Geosyntec received 6 points, and Moffett and Nichols received 3 points. If that is accurate, then Moffett and Nichols has been eliminated, and we will start over from scratch with the top 3, interviewing the top 3, and the top 3 that will be shortlisted are Jacob, or Jacob singular, Jacob's plural, Jacob's plural,
AECom.
AECom, and Geosyntec/ATM. Is that correct? Do we all agree that that is correct?
The numbers are accurate, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Is there anything else that has to come before us? Ms. Cosio, we have done the ranking. We are now on the next steps.
Next steps will be to arrange for the interviews and also I think to review the ranking form, right? Because you have some questions about the things.
I don't think it should be based strictly on the number of
So
years.
Perhaps I can work with one of the members of the committee to sort that out. But
I'll be happy to
I'll work
work.
with staff. And
I'll be
provide
happy to
feedback.
work with you. My recommendation is Mr. Gorin has seen thousands of these over the years.
And I-
So he might have some other suggestions on criteria besides just number of years of
And I
experience.
think we have an opportunity here, Geller, because now that we have,
Shortlisted.
right, MIR too, we got the South Florida Defense Alliance, I would bring them in to help me look at, they're the experts on the military stuff. Have them come and also add their input.
Just remember that their advice is sought, but the rankings must be done by the 5.
Independent.
Oh,
Right.
of course, no, I'm
Right.
not asking for them to
Right,
rank,
no,
but simply to review the
Right.
form.
They are the anticipated vendor, yet to be negotiated
I
with.
mean, it's just, I thought
Right.
they could look at the ranking form
Okay.
and see if there's anything we can
yes,
add.
I think the
Or
ranking
clarify.
form would be helpful.
Yeah.
I will also ask you, as we discussed earlier, to advise them of Commissioner Furr's question about capacity, and I believe another commissioner asked that. Senator Garcia, Mayor Ziotti, Commissioner Kaufman, are there any other questions that you would like specifically the top 3 shortlisted companies to be able to discuss? Or do you want to just bring it on to see how, they respond to unexpected things?
Mine just had to
Mayor
do with
Ziotti,
the
you
cost of
recognize.
travel.
Mayor Ziotti, what'd you say?
Mine had to do with the cost of travel for the ones that had a lot of people out of town.
Which company was that?
ACOM had a lot of people out of town.
Okay, so Ms. Cosio, please, be prepared to ask them to be prepared to deal with that. Commissioner Kaufman, I believe you also were trying to speak.
Yeah, just again on the capacity issue, I think that's very important, but really for the lead person. I'd like to know what the availability is of the lead person who's going to be the spokesperson at the meetings and the workshops. And I'd like to know what other contracts that person has commitments to. That's really what I really want to know. They may have a lot of other staff, but the focus for that lead person.
Okay.
Okay,
Ms.
so,
Duncan.
thank you, Chair Geller. So you want to know the capacity of the project director versus the project manager?
Well, he wants to know both, but
Probably both.
I mean, both, but I guess the point is,
But
for example,
the team may have a lot of capacity, but he wants to know who the single lead, the amount of capacity that they have. Senator Garcia, do you have anything else that you wanted the top three to be prepared to discuss? You're on mute.
Can you repeat that? I'm sorry.
Is there anything we have asked Ms. Cosio Carballo to notify the shortlisted companies of any issues in particular we would like them to discuss in their presentation? We've discussed capacity, we've discussed travel. Is there anything in particular that you wanted to add, Senator? No. All
I'm
right.
good. On your lead.
Thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chair, if I may?
Yes.
Just quickly, as you conclude the meeting and the next steps, you've heard from our director with regard to scheduling interviews in January. That would be a date and time that makes
I would look
sense.
for that first week if possible.
I was going to say, second week is first week of session, third week is Broward days.
So first week's okay.
Yeah, first week's
So
okay.
my question would be is how much
How much time do you
time
wish to allocate for
you
it?
want to allocate? Because we're going to have to set up
Correct.
3 different meetings. within a-
No,
No,
actually,
it's one meeting. so
Right.
it'll be-
Sequential,
This
but
person
separate.
will come in at this time.
I am afraid that we will need my guess is a minimum of a half an hour for each presentation
And we're thinking
and
that-
half an hour for debate. So at a minimum, I think that we should ask them to present in no more than 15 minutes.
That would be fair. Just so they know going into the process what their timeframes are going to be.
Right, 15, oh, what do y'all think, 15 or 20 minutes?
20.
20, okay, give them each 20 minutes with the expectation that we will then take another 20 minutes or so in Q&A. So we should schedule them 45 minutes apart, and that would then give us 45, 90, 135, and then half an hour for debate, 3 hours at least. Yeah. Okay, so I would recommend that we start a meeting at 1:30 in the afternoon
1:30.
8 o'clock?
with the expectation that we'll be done by 8 o'clock. No. No, but 1:30 with the hope to finish by 4:35, 5:30.
Can we look at a date?
Sure.
Can we look at a date, board members? Maybe you want to do it Thursday?
Wouldn't that be the 6th? I can do the 6th. Can't do the 5th.
I can do the 6th. I can do the 5th. Can't do the 4th.
I'm good on the 6th.
On the 6th? Mayor?
Good.
Yeah, 6 works for me.
Senator Garcia, does January 6th work for you, sir?
Yes, sir.
Commissioner Kaufman, does January 6th at 1:30 work for you, sir?
Yes, yes.
Okay,
We have it.
well, our meeting will be on January 6th at 1:30. Please send out notices. Hold on. Let me put this in my calendar first. SFRPC. And, okay. At 1:30, my computer did 1:30 to 2:30. Isn't that funny? Okay.
Very optimistic computer.
Yeah, I just changed it. Okay. Is there anything else that needs to come in front of this committee before we adjourn?
If we could just remind them that we receive booklets in excess of 40 to 50 pages. So we have an awful lot of information that we've already seen. So if they can, when they give their initial speech, that it be more of an elevator speech than inundating us with yet more information aside from what we've asked.
Although, what I would be interested in hearing from them is their capacity, their local ties, their military, as opposed to in a 20-minute presentation, as opposed to, and then when I was 17, I went to, whatever college, right? No. Staff, I would ask that you work with Ms. Cosio and perhaps the South Florida Defense Alliance and with Chair Kaufman, with Attorney Gorin Kaufman, okay, and work with them on both coming up with better criteria sheets, but also, again, the single issue that I have the most problem with was the approach, because with all of the other things, I have the ability to compare and contrast, and I simply lack the technical expertise to determine whose approach is better. And again, commissioners, remember, elected officials, remember, we are under code of silence. Ms. Cosio, is there anything else that comes up before we adjourn?
No.
Attorney Gorin, is there anything else that comes up before we adjourn?
No, Mr. Chairman, thank you for the offer. I appreciate it.
Do any of the commissioners have, or council members have any additional comments before we adjourn?
Thank you, staff, for the Cliff Notes versions of all the presentations, and motion to adjourn.
Seconded, no, I'm sorry.
I think we already had it, but I guess this presentation right here.
Yeah.
Was that distributed?
Yes. Yes.
I thought it wouldn't change at all.
Okay. No. By the way, is it safe to assume that no one can change their presentation? Whatever the presentation is, they're locked into this now.
Locked into the process. That's
Okay.
correct.
So there's a motion to adjourn, seconded by Senator Garcia. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Oh, yeah.
Aye.
Opposed, and wait here.
Oh, yeah.
But the rest of us are adjourned.
Happy holidays. Happy New Year.
Yes.
Happy holidays.
Bye.
Thank you.
Friday.
Yeah, because I want to.
So
My box.